education, not such a sexy word, is it? But what about if it gives you the ability to think? But wait, it doesn't, does it? Because all the people who went to school, most of them, put masks on during the scamdemic and allowed themselves to be injected with complete disgusting toxins. So that means we do need to talk about education. We have to talk about how we learn, what kind of schools we are using and going to and accepting and perpetuating. This is all about generating, yes, cash, money, support, people, momentum for a new kind of education. I call it New Earth Education at the Speaking House. All I want for now is to build one place as an example, have a lot of children, a lot of parents, families, homeschooling families, teachers, young adults, older ones, come and stay there for a while, understand the principles and how learning can be turned inside out and on its head. And what is the result? Oh my goodness, thinking people, fancy that. The ability to analyze, to discern, to discriminate, to understand the progression of logical thought. That's really important. And our schools don't do that, but they say they do, or that's apparently the aim. And then we've got a whole lot of other things that I call human soul technology, which has completely been hidden away from our educational system. The entire realm of intuition and soul. What do we have? We have telepathy. That's the ability to pick up, transfer thoughts between people far away. Through the quantum resonance field, you can talk to somebody in New Zealand. You can't get that much further on this planet. Telepathy could be just talking to your neighbor or to the local elemental being. The clouds, the weather. Oh my goodness, now she's going kooky. Yes, because everything is an energetic essence. And that is also missing from our education. Energy. Ooh, the entire framework of energy, consciousness. The human soul technology is not just telepathy and clairaudience and clairvoyance and clairsentience and all the clairs. It is about using them on a daily basis, trusting and understanding the intuition and truly being a being of soul, which means you have incarnations in your past. Sometimes people have parallel incarnations. Sometimes we've been human for a while and we've been all kinds of other things, and we're not using them. We're completely denying access. People say, oh, it's because of the DNA and everything else going on. No, yes, a little bit. It is to do with frequency fencing and inhibitions through electromagnetic frequencies we are bombarded with deliberately, but it's also to do with choosing to awaken, not only awaken, to practice, to maintain, to nurture, to manage on a daily, on an hourly, on a minutely basis. Those spidey senses are what enable us to be innovative and creative and empathic and loving beyond belief. If someone slaps you in the face, remember what Jesus said, you turn the other cheek. How did he do that? Because he plugged into something else and he saw, that being, just had a really bad morning, didn't they? Lost the dog, had a really nasty row, and someone stole his purse. No wonder. Because he was seeing with his other eyes, his soul eyes. He also had the ability to see that person as not just the small framework of humanity and distress, but as the full, epic, wondrous soul. Imagine if we could do that. This little talk is actually supposed to be about the difference between I am a robot, hive mind, normalcy in education, and lateral thinking, innovation, connected into the spirit within the soul, the divine source field, and how that works. So we're going to take a playground, and not even a really beautiful playground, a terrible normal British playground, which are terrible places, a tarmac field with some plain grass around it, and if you're lucky, a couple of trees around the edge, and a fence. And then you've got a couple of things. What do you have? Swings, you have slides, and you have a carousel. You might have a seesaw. Why is she talking about that? Because actually every single one of those pieces of equipment are amazing tools for learning maths and physics. All the forces of physics, all the currently proposed forces of physics, momentum, torque, drive, the understanding of weight, force, balance can be taught by children in a playground. But currently we're just using these things like blah, 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 blah. If we use the tools in a different way. Now let me just talk about children and abacuses in China. If you watch 3-4-year-olds in China, it is a little scary, their system, because they are drilled and it's rote and they do it and they do it and they do it, and there's not much space for natural creative play. But what is interesting is to see what very small people are capable of. They have small children in kindergartens learning how to make pancakes from scratch, omelets from scratch, ironing things. Hot, dangerous stuff, but they teach them. They're quite normal about it. They understand, these little children, what is hot, what is dangerous, what will bring them a spatter of oil and hurt themselves. They understand because it's made normal. Back to the abacus, difficult for us to count on, but Chinese, they've had it for thousands of years. They know how to count. And you have children doing mental arithmetic with an imaginary abacus in front of them faster than a computer. And they're not geniuses. They're just instructed through expectation and some information. Now, if you even just put different signage in a playground, that bog standard British playground, which is just abominable. But if you put a few questions, a few formula and diagrams, and something to measure things with, you're already doing a passive teaching. So if you had some of these physics formulae and some way of measuring, tracking speed and weight and distance, you would already get some thoughts. Now, that's just the very inquisitive children. What if the adults there, they knew what could be measured on a carousel, and that if two more children, each 15 kilos, jump on it, the speed change that will happen and the momentum and how soon they will have to kick again to get it spinning. If they were those kind of parents, and there are some of those, they're called physicists. And that's just standard, bog standard, basic physics, they would be able to just talk about it in a normal way. Now, what about if all of the parents, all of the adults in that region knew that stuff, the basic physics, and they would talk about it in a normal way? It's like, oh, how many kilos are you going to put on there? Or how many pounds, how many stone, whether you're in kilos or stone. And it was made a normal part of language, of communication, of play, of investigation, of experimentation. You wouldn't have to have your physics lessons sitting behind desks in a fluorescent streamed white grey classroom anymore. You could take them out. They could use their bodies. They could use their sensomotoric, deep muscle memory of their bodies in conjunction with their thoughts and interaction with the adults. And they would get all the basic, what used to be O-level physics learnt. If you actually had people building carousels and swings and seesaws that had these principles understood, and they had beautiful signs and signatures built into the very plastic or the metal or whatever resins are used, that would be easy. If they could have measuring on a slide, imagine having feet and inches or centimeters and meters on a slide. Imagine having the ability to weigh a child on a swing, on a seesaw, have a pressure gauge on the bottom of the seesaw. I'm just talking through some very basic math and physics here. But if it was built in, the stuff that people say is horrible and I hate it and it's difficult and I can't do it, and they leave school without being able to do it, would just be normal. Because children are not stupid. They can be made stupid. They can be expected to be stupid. And they can be taught stupidly. When you have a prepared environment and you have adults who are supportive, not dictating, not controlling, just there with some good boundaries agreed on by both parties in discussion, sometimes at the time, sometimes elsewhere, basic ground rules, which can always be moved according to different circumstances, as life should be, not hard, but flexible. You can learn this stuff with ease, with grace. It would be normal. And then you can learn the more complicated. If you want to be a top athlete, diver, you need to know a lot of this stuff. But if it's already in your intuitive understanding because you've been on that carousel and that seesaw and that swing, you've had games that you played, you dared, your games were about calculations, then you can focus on the grace and the strength and the beauty. Now that's a beautiful diver. It could lead to any kind of careers. All I'm saying is we are operating as a very stupid system, stupid enough to make people wear masks that have pores 1,000 times bigger than the thing they're trying to keep out. I have worn a mask when I'm sanding, because that's slightly different. Those are bigger particles when you're sanding wood. Yeah? We do not need to be stupid. We need to treat our children with respect. And that is a completely different educational system. Please join me. Go to the Just Give page. Just give £1, £5, dollars, whatever it is. Let's build something, because I'm not expecting to be able to build this place overnight. I want to build the awareness of its possibility. And then I want to build it. And then I want to build lots of them around the world that people go to stay in and visit and experience and then take away and put into their own beautiful, intelligent, geographic and cultural context. I'm Dr. Isabella May. This is my life passion. It combines everything I've ever done. I hope this has activated your human potential, and I will see you soon.